There are things you think are normal until you stop and realize you're being watched. A flash from a dark window, a drilling sound at 2 a.m. from a supposedly vacant apartment, a pair of eyes that never look away. In this video, I'll tell you 3 terrifying true stories. Each one begins with something seemingly harmless, then spirals into an unspeakable nightmare. If you're watching this at night, make sure your curtains are tightly closed. Story 1. The flash from the window. I have twin sons Sam and Robbie. They just turned 6. A year ago, we had to move out of our home. Not for work, not for financial reasons, but because of something that made it impossible for us to stay there even one more night. The old house was where my wife Carol and I thought we'd live out the rest of our lives. We got married there, raised our kids there. Everything seemed peaceful, until the new neighbor moved in. His name was Steve. Tall, skinny, spoke with a thick, hard-to-understand voice. But what disturbed me most was the way he never smiled. His house was directly to our right with 2 second-floor windows facing our backyard, where the kids usually played every afternoon. One hot summer day, I was mowing the lawn and happened to look up and caught him standing completely still behind the window staring outside. Half a second later, he turned away and vanished. Something didn't feel right, but I forced myself to let it go. That evening, after the sun had set and the kids were back in the kiddie pool, Robbie suddenly ran into the house, panic on his face. There was a flash from the window next door, he said, like a camera flash. My heart sank. I walked into the yard and looked up at Steve's second-floor window. The light in that room had never once been on. I asked the kids if it looked like a photo being taken. They both nodded confidently. I brought the kids inside and told Carol. She immediately urged me to go knock on Steve's door. I did, but no matter how many times I rang the bell, no one answered. His car was still parked in the driveway. He was there. He just didn't want to be seen. About 2 weeks later, around midnight, I heard the backyard gate open and close again. I turned on the lights and checked no one was there. But I noticed the lights in Steve's backyard were on, so I approached the fence and called out. Steve suddenly appeared on the other side, startling me. I asked if he had seen anyone sneaking into my yard. He said, "No." I decided to be direct. "Are you watching my kids? They said they saw you taking pictures from your window." He instantly lost it, yelling, accusing me of slander. His reaction didn't feel innocent. It made my skin crawl. That night, I'll never forget. A scream came from the kids' room. I ran downstairs and found Robbie sobbing and Sam clutching his pillow. Robbie said someone had just been standing outside their window, with a camera flash going off. I rushed to our bedroom window and looked across at Steve's house. It was dark. But then, I saw him. Steve was at the window too, staring directly back at me, his face completely expressionless. I lost it. Ran over and rang his doorbell over and over. No answer. I called the police and filed a report even though I had no solid proof. 3 days later, while trimming bushes in the yard, I found an old camera hidden in the shrubs. The memory card had been removed. I turned it into the police. A week later, they contacted me. They had found the missing memory card hidden inside Steve's plumbing system. What they saw on it were dozens of pictures. Almost all were of our kids taken through windows. Some were close-up shots, terrifyingly clear. Steve vanished after that. No one saw him leave. No one could find him. The police launched an investigation but couldn't trace where he went. We moved out of the house within a month. Every time I draw the curtains at night, I still feel it. A presence watching. And if you ever notice a flash coming from the neighbor's window and you think no one's looking, are you sure it's not you being watched? Story 2. The Men in the Vacant Apartment. I moved into this apartment about 3 months ago with 2 of my girlfriends from college. The building wasn't ideal, noisy, lacking privacy, and our windows looked directly out onto the hallway. But I figured I could get used to it. Most of the neighbors were students, and the area felt friendly. Until that night. I was getting ready for bed when I heard music coming from the unit next door. Some early 2000s pop songs, pretty catchy. I figured it was a group of friends drinking or maybe a frat house throwing a party. But then, I started hearing drilling sounds. At first, I thought I was imagining it maybe from a phone video. But when I turned my phone off, the sound continued. That high-pitched metallic screech, it was a drill. A real one. But here's the weird part, that unit was vacant. I had seen it sealed up weeks ago for water system issues. No one was supposed to be living there. And certainly no one should be drilling into walls at 11 p.m. on a weekday. I went to the window, drew the curtains slightly, and looked across at the unit. Lights were on. Music still playing. The drilling continued. Something felt wrong. I pulled out my phone and recorded a quick video, then texted a friend. He replied, "You should call the police. No one's allowed to do that at night, especially in a sealed unit." I hesitated. It was nearly midnight. I was tired and just wanted to sleep. But the moment I dozed off, the hammering began. At 1 a.m., I woke up again. Eyes dry, mind racing. This time I decided to check it out for myself. The unit's window was slightly open just above the staircase. I stepped down a few steps, just enough to bring my face level with the window. And then, I saw them. 4 men. None younger than 35. Wearing tank tops drenched in sweat, covered in dust and grime. They were doing something unclear what, but they all stopped. The moment they saw me. They didn't look surprised, didn't ask who I was. They just stood there, staring. Then 2 of them moved closer to the window. One held a heavy iron hammer, hands coated in grease. The other smiled. Not a normal smile, a slow, crooked grin. Eyes wide, unblinking, like they'd just found prey. I froze, a chill rushing through me. I realized I was wearing only a thin bathrobe, having rushed out. They stared me down, eyes never blinking, no words, no movement. Music continued to play, a teenage pop song echoing creepily from a room full of middle-aged men at midnight. I backed away, heart pounding. The moment I was out of sight, I turned and ran. Slammed the door shut, locked every bolt. My roommates were out that night. I texted the only one who might be home, but got no reply. I sat there on the edge of my bed listening. It was dead silent. And then, the noise stopped. The music, the hammering, the voices, all gone. At around 3:30 a.m., I woke up again. There were no more sounds, but the unease remained, like something, or someone, was standing just beyond my window, watching in silence. The next morning, I went outside and deliberately walked past that unit. Windows shut, curtains drawn, as if no one had ever been there. But when I asked my roommate, she said she had woken up multiple times during the night because of strange sounds. But she had sleep paralysis. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. She just lay there hearing the hammering through the wall. That night wasn't a hallucination. The real question is, why were they there? Who let them into a sealed unit? And what exactly were they preparing for whom? A week later, I received an anonymous email. No subject line. Attached was a photo. It was me standing next to the window at the exact moment I turned to walk away. The photo had been taken from inside that apartment. I've never looked out my window at night since. Story 3. The Eyes Behind the Window. After months of searching, my girlfriend Sarah and I finally rented a small house in Long Island. It was just right for the two of us, a backyard peaceful on a quiet street. To the right was a tree line separating us from an elderly couple's house. Out front was a patch of forest and a shallow pond. It felt private, close to nature. But the backyard faced another house directly behind us, separated only by a low wooden fence. I noticed something strange just days after moving in. Every time either Sarah or I went out to rake leaves, there were two people standing at the second-floor window of the house behind. A man and a woman, middle-aged, motionless. They didn't do anything, didn't speak, just stood there and watched. At first, I thought it was coincidence, but it happened every single time. They never looked away. I tried waving, smiling awkwardly. No response, no nod, no smile, no movement, just their eyes piercing. Sarah started getting nervous. She stopped going outside. She told me the way they stare. It's like they're waiting for something to happen. One foggy afternoon, I was laying compost in the corner of the yard and glanced up again. They were still there, eyes wide open, not blinking. I shuddered, turned away, but could feel without a doubt they had never moved from the window. Not for a second. Sarah suggested we go introduce ourselves, see what's going on. I was uncomfortable but agreed. We walked around the block to reach the back house and rang the bell. The door opened slightly, just enough to reveal half the face of a young man, maybe in his 20s. It wasn't either of the people we'd seen at the window. Inside was pitch black. No sounds, no lights. I spoke up. "Hi, sorry, we're your new neighbors. We just wanted to ask." He cut me off. "I live alone." I glanced at Sarah. She had clearly heard me mention the man and woman we always saw upstairs. "The man and woman we see in your second-floor window," I said. He paused for a moment, then replied coldly, "I don't know what you're talking about." The air froze. We said goodbye and turned away. But as we stepped off the porch, I looked back. The door was still open and he was still standing there watching, unblinking. Back home, I went upstairs where we had a clear view of their window. I pulled back the curtain, and just as I feared, they were back. The exact same two people, as if they had never left. I could see every detail, sunken eyes, tight lips. No blinking, no movement. But I could feel them watching me. I slammed the curtain shut and told Sarah we'd plant some trees come spring. But winter was coming. No one plants anything in winter. We tried ignoring it for a few days. No looking out windows, no going outside. Until one night, knock, knock, knock. Not at the front door, but the back glass door by the living room. Sarah froze in her seat. I got up and approached. The curtains were shut tight. The knocking came again. Someone was knocking on the glass with their fist. I didn't open the curtain. Instead, I flipped on the backyard light. The knocking stopped. Immediately. I didn't look. Didn't want to know. I went upstairs and told Sarah I chased someone off, but truthfully, I couldn't face it either. I didn't sleep that night. 2 weeks passed. Oddly, we stopped seeing the couple at the window. But last night around 3 a.m., sudden screaming erupted from that house. Sarah woke up. I ran to the window. Even through the glass, I could hear the chaos. Then, silence. The kind of silence that closes something shut. We thought about calling the police, but didn't. Maybe something deep in our minds told us the less we get involved, the better. Since then, I close all the curtains before sunset, because I don't know what's worse. Being watched from the window, or seeing that window suddenly empty. 3 stories, 3 warnings. Sometimes the real horror doesn't come from strangers, but from the neighbor you never spoke to. The apartment you thought was vacant, or the pair of eyes from across the window in a place you thought was safe. If any of these stories gave you chills, let me know in the comments below. And if you've had your own terrifying experience, don't hesitate to share it. I read them all. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, look behind you before turning off the lights.